Hey, this is Mike from Minimal 3DP, and today I'm continuing my series on the FLSun T1 Pro that FLSun was gracious enough to send to me for testing. And I'm looking forward today to doing some configuration and test prints, and then probably, depending on how long this video goes, I may do some configuration with my slicer, or I may just put that off to a new video. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Before we start off with the initial calibration sequences, for those of you that followed the channel for a while, you know that I prefer to access my printers that are running Clipper via the web interface rather than the screen. And it turns out, although I can't find it in the manual for the T1 Pro, that you can access Mainsail with this printer really easily. All you need to do is type in http://FLSun T1 Pro, and that will bring you to the Mainsail interface for the printer, where it appears you can run all the controls. And also, if you scroll down, you'll notice that they do have some macros already set up. Now, for the initial calibration, I'm going to use the screen to do the vibration testing and the bed leveling. I just wanted to point out that we are able to access and use this printer via Mainsail. In my last video, we got the printer up and running, and we did connect it to the Wi-Fi. So if you need to know how to connect this to the Wi-Fi, please take a look at the first video in this series. Now, to run the calibration, it's actually fairly easy. There's two calibrations built in via the screen. We're just going to go to Settings and then Calibration. There's Vibration Testing and then Bed Leveling. Now, I'm going to do the bed leveling first. So let's just press on bed leveling, and then we can hit start. Now, I'm going to open the printer up, and once I hit start, we'll move the camera up so you can take a look here and see what it's actually doing. So let me see if I could back the camera out some. There we go. So we can still sort of see the screen. I'm just going to move it up a little bit. And this is starting the bed leveling sequence. Now I'm going to watch in Mainsail. It is heating the extruder up to 140, and it's bringing the bed temperature up to 60, which the 60 temperature is actually good for me. That's typically what I print around. So we're going to let this go for a minute. And right now it's still heating up. So let me pause. And then once it begins the actual sequence, we'll come back. So now it's finally started the leveling sequence. And what it's doing is this is very similar. It reminds me of the K2 Plus. It's literally going around and sensing the bed at various points. Now, I will point out that as I'm looking at this in Mainsail, maybe I need to try to bring that up. So let me pause and bring up Mainsail as well. So if we look at Mainsail, what I'm seeing is the temperatures did fluctuate as it was doing the bed leveling. Now, it said in the documentation that should take about 5 minutes to do the bed leveling. And what's interesting is it appears to be doing it twice. Maybe it's going to do it multiple times. So this is interesting because I've never seen a Delta printer do bed leveling. So it looks like this time it's going to go around the whole bed, if I'm interpreting it right. Now I am noticing, as I mentioned, that we're getting some fluctuation with both the hot end and the bed as I'm looking at it in Mainsail. So although it's not mentioning it in the documentation or in the manual, I'll go ahead as part of this video and do some PID tuning as well. And that way, again, I just know everything's set up the way I want it to, and that should help with how it's heating up with stability and all that good stuff. And to me, PID tuning is something you need to do with every printer anyway. So you can see it's bed leveling. I'll come back if anything interesting happens with this. Again, I've never seen a Delta printer bed level. But right now it just appears to be creating that initial mesh. So let me pause and we'll come back once this is finished. So it completed building the bed mesh. And what I'm going to point out just was sort of interesting. It did go ahead and restart Clipper or restart the OS on the machine to save the mesh. I'm just going to uncheck bed leveling since I already did that. And let's go ahead and do the vibration compensation. I'll move the camera again before I hit start. So that way maybe we can see what the print head's doing. So I've moved the camera back. I'm just going to hit start for the vibration compensation. My guess is what it's going to do is just be shaking the print head. Now, ironically, it did move the camera down, or I'm sorry, move the print head down. So and I can tell you what it's doing is I can hear the print head vibrating. So it's just running the vibrations. So it's trying different frequencies right now. It's hard to hear. I'll also point out I'm running several printers right now, but I can see the print head is vibrating at various frequencies, trying to identify that perfect compensation. The vibration compensation went ahead and did a reboot as well, which was to be expected. Looks like we're done with this. Now, we should actually be, according to the manual, ready to print. I want to go ahead and do the PID tuning, and I'll do that on camera just so you can see the steps I take. And that way we'll get the bed set up the way I want it, as well as the extruder. One of the other things I'll have to do is actually load filament in. To load this, I'm not sure I'm doing this exactly, but what I'm going to do is have the filament coming down from the back. So I'm just going to open this little spool holder here, push the filament up, and then go back across here. Now, I need to actually get the filament up. It's a little hard to load when I have a camera here. I don't really think this is. There we go. So that's loaded. And the filament's going to come down the back. And I'm going to point out there's little holes here. So I'm going to have to run the filament through. It's basically these little filament holders that are on the wire harness. So let me clip my filament and I'm just going to run it down and then put it into the extruder. So let me do that off camera simply because I'm going to need the space. So I've heated the nozzle up and I've run the filament down along the wire harness. Now I'm just inserting the filament. And I'm actually going to load this based on the interface, which isn't normally how I do this. I normally sort of just brute force it. I've sort of pushed it in, and on the load, it actually wants to take it up to 240. So it's heating up. It was at 220. It's almost at 240 now. Now, personally, I said we're definitely going to PID tune this, but I want to PID tune it with the filament loaded. Now, it just came right through. Now, I want to point out I'm loading my favorite color, FLSun Fire Engine Red, which I'm really addicted to that color. And I just looked and seen how many rolls I have, and it's scary. Now, I am going to point out there must have been some type of test print or something with this extruder, because if you look, there is gray coming out. So they do some type of test print or at least test extrusion. We have that all loaded. Filament is coming out. And since it's hot, it's a 240, it's going to keep dripping down. I'm going to turn it on cool down, let this cool. And then let's go over and do our PID tuning. And then we'll do our first print. I'm also going to hit the bed with some alcohol to clean it. And that gets us off to a good start. Let's switch over and we'll do the PID tuning. So I'm starting off with my PID command for my extruder. And you'll notice I have it at 220. I now print on most of my Clipper machines PLA at 220, with the idea being that I'm speeding these printers up and I want the filament to flow really well. And it's really worked well for me. So let's just start running this test. So I'm just sending the command. And if we look, it's now set the extruder to 220 and it's heating up. So what I'll do is pause, let it complete the test, and we'll come back. So as you can see down here in the console, the PID tuning is complete. And again, I'm doing this via main sail, so I want to keep pointing that out. It's completed. And now in order to save it, I just need to go up here to the top and type save config, or I can also type in save_config. I just rather hit the button. So it's saving it. Now it is rebooting Clipper or rebooting the printer, however you want to look at it. So that was, again, pretty quick. So now let's take a look at doing the bed. So as you can see, I've added the command for the bed. So we're just going to PID tune this. The target is 60 degrees. Let's go ahead and start it. You can see it sets the bed temp. It's doing the actual tune test. Now I'm going to point out, you definitely want to do the test for the extruder with filament loaded. You don't want the extruder to be empty. Now, according to the documentation for the T1 Pro, the max temp is, I believe, 320 degrees for the extruder. So you should be able to print almost anything. I'm sorry, 300 degrees for the extruder. So we can print almost any of the various filament types. Now, looking carefully at the various parameters, I am noticing that optimally the printer is set up for PLA, benchy, and TPU, and will give superior quality for ABS, ASA, PAs, PC, and PET. So just keep that in mind. Now, once this completes, we'll save the config and then do our first test print. So the PID tuning is complete. Let me just save my config. And I'm noticing, and I can see this on both the screen on the FLSun, as well as via main sail here, there's already print jobs sliced and ready. Now, the only one I'm really familiar with here, and it looks like there's some cool code, is the benchy. So I'm going to run the pre-sliced benchy, which is mentioning it should run in 9 minutes, 7 seconds. That is just about the fastest I've ever had a benchy go. Now, I did mention earlier, before I start printing, I'm going to go ahead and clean the bed real quick. So I'll just be real gentle there and do that. And then let's go ahead and send the print. I'll probably switch over to the camera so that'll give you a better view. And let me set that up. Let's go ahead and send it. And let's see what happens. Now it's homing first, and I've already discovered that homing goes towards the top of the printer. Now I'm going to point out, and you probably can hear them, the fans are really loud. So the fans are loud, and I'll have to check to make sure I have everything connected appropriately for that. Now I am noticing, like I said, the fans are loud, but it is pumping a ton of air. So anything printed will wind up being extremely well cooled. Let me come back in a minute when that actually starts. You can see the screen so we can look at what times it's saying. I'm going to point out, once it starts printing, it's actually really quiet. So just on that initial startup, it was initially loud, so I'll have to look into that. But now that it's going, I actually think it's quieter than some of my other printers. In fact, even with the door open, I'm hearing a little bit more from the Creality. Let me try closing the door. Yeah, closing the door, I'm not really hearing. The fan is loud, and that's probably because it's doing that CPAP. I'll also check through the printer and make sure I didn't leave any plastic in there. So maybe it is a little louder, but this isn't anything I can't live with. I'll say this. This is a scary fast printer. This is by far the quickest I've ever seen a benchy go. I'm already 8% done. And like I said, it's flying. I'm also going to point out, looking at the camera in mainsail, I really like the resolution of the camera. Now, I mentioned last video, maybe it was too focused on the bed, but I really like it. And as I said, this is amazingly fast. Now, it looks like we're getting good quality. And I will, like I said, play around a little bit and see, make sure I have all the fans adjusted appropriately. But I mean, I'm really impressed with the speed. And with the door closed, I don't think the printer's not louder than any of my other ones. Or at least I don't feel it is. So again, pretty cool. Let me pause and I'll come back once that benchy's finished and we'll take a look. And we're complete. Now that, by far, and that was 10 minutes, was the fastest benchy I've ever seen. Now looking at this, so let's look at it. This really looks good. And there may be a little bit of, I don't even know. I mean, this looks maybe a little stringing, a little bit of imperfection there, but I mean, this is, right out of the box, this looks wonderful. So I'm really, really pleased with this. So there's the first print, and it's fast, really fast. Now, this is a review, so let me say a couple things. I really like this printer. One, it's fast, and one of my problems with it, I guess, is it has a smaller bed, and I have been switching over to printers with bigger beds so I could do more print and play stuff, because as I mentioned before, I do a lot of that for schools. But this printer most definitely would be awesome for prototyping. As I'm trying to design a part for another printer, it's fast, I can push filament through it. So far, so good. I'm like really impressed with this printer, and I certainly can see myself using it for prototyping. Not to say I won't do any print in place, but it's hard to do a whole bunch of prints on that 260 millimeter circumference bed. And I'm also going to point out that I feel, after listening to this, it is loud. I may have to look at how I have the fan set up, but that, again, is not a deal breaker for me. The self-calibration, pretty much easy setup. I would recommend this printer, particularly if you're looking for something. And as I mentioned, prototyping, this feels like the ideal machine for that. Build quality, I will point out that the arms here are plastic, but even that doesn't seem to be much of an issue. Everything feels solid, although there are a lot of plastic parts. This probably wouldn't be a printer where occasionally I take a printer to a school for a STEM night. I wouldn't take this printer, mainly because it's bigger, tall, and be hard to carry. I probably still stick with one of my bed slingers that has a metal frame that I could be a little rougher with. But overall, I'd recommend this printer. In my next video, I'm going to go through configuring and setting up Orca Slicer, and then we'll also probably take a look at doing some fine tuning as well. If you have any questions or comments, please post below and I'll get back to you soon. Thank you for your time. You have a great day.